It's taken a while, but I finally got these pages done for my Belgian album. Now they're on the printer printing. Yay! Hi, I'm Ken. It's taken a while, but finally I've got those pages printed for my Belgian regular issue stamp album. I'd shown you this book before. In this book, I've got my pages of stock book pages for my Belgian stamps. I think let's get that on camera. You'll see right here, I've got some number ones over here, but over here I've got later issues. It was filling up. It was time to make that album. I've been working on it for a while, and now those pages are done. The ones that just came off the printer are here. I now have to take a little bit of a break and go off and fill these pages in. And when I'm done filling them in, we'll be back and I'll show you the results of this new album. 2 weeks later. With due respect to Nickelodeon and a thank you, I love that transition style. I don't love taking other people's copyrighted material. Anyway, I'm back. I've finished putting my stamps into my new Belgian stamp album. We're going to spend some time diving into this and taking a look at those pages. And here we go with my new pages all filled out in my Belgian regular issue stamp book. Notice that this is my regular issue book. This is not an album of all Belgian stamps. I just collect regular issue stamps, no commemorative, usually no back of the book stamps, although occasionally they slip in. But this is just regular issue stamps. That's my collection here. So don't expect a full survey of Belgian stamps. The second thing I have in this album, I usually add to my albums a page of the various political boundaries of what do we consider Belgian stamps. In this one, I've got occupations and stamp issuing colonies. I have not filled out stamp issuing colonies in this album yet because I'm not sure whether I'm going to include these colonies as part of their own country albums or whether they're going to be included here. I just haven't decided yet. In the occupations side, I have put the German occupations, but not the Allemagne, Eupen, and Malmedy stamps. So we've got the German occupations, but not the others in here yet. So that's just a little reminder page I like to keep in my albums. This is the first page of stamps. You'll notice that I have this stamp right here in the first position. I had said earlier in my video that I was pleased to have a Belgian stamp number one. And I even put the strip up here in the first position. I put that stamp in the first position, and then I realized I don't have Belgian stamp number one. This is in fact Belgian stamp number three. These are oddly difficult for me to tell apart, but let's pop up a picture of those two stamps. The one on the left is Belgian number one. The one on the right is Belgian number three. It should be pretty straightforward to tell these apart, although for some reason I blank on them when I see them. The Belgian number one has no frame around the king's head. This is King Leopold I of Belgium. The number one doesn't have a frame around the edge, and the letters on the bottom that say Dick Sense, those are straight on the bottom. On the number three, there's a frame. In fact, all the later stamps have the frame around the edge. On number three, there's the frame around the edge, but also notice that on the Dick Sense, it's curved around the bottom of the frame. So these are really easy to tell apart. I have some kind of mental block against it, but there you go. I have left this number three in the first position. It rightly belongs on a strip right here, but I left it here because I'd rather have it in the wrong position than have a blank strip in my album. I don't know why I have that preference, but that's my preference. These stamps have a couple of varieties, and that's why I have the different strips. So each of these strips represents a different variety of these stamps. This first one is the second variety. All the second forward have that circle frame around the king's head. But this variety has a different watermark. The watermark has a square frame around it, two L's intertwined with a square frame around it, as compared to this strip, which has the two L's intertwined, but not the square frame around it. On this third strip, there is no watermark at all, so you can tell these apart pretty easily by looking at the watermark. Finally, on this last strip, these stamps have perforations on them, and you can see that around the bottom of these stamps. These stamps have perforations on them, and that's when perforations were first introduced in Belgium. So we have 3 different watermark styles, we have 2 different design styles, and we have perforations on this page. There are other varieties for deep dive into Belgian stamps. I've listed some of those on the notes here. There was thick and thin paper, there were reprints, there were slightly different sizes, there were slightly different papers, and different perforation varieties. That's a level of detail that I'm not ready for this collection to take on. I just don't have enough stamps to justify getting to that level of detail in Belgium yet, which is fine, but I've made note of them in this album for when I do finally get to the point in this collection where I want to add that. So that's this first page. Let's move on. The second design is just one design, and I have just one stamp for it here, 21. This stamp page has 2 different columns in the bottom here. One is for a London print, the other is for a Brussels print. There are 5 different stamps here, and I have at number 21. Number 21, in fact, all of the first 4 stamps only come in the Brussels print. It's only this 1 franc stamp that comes in both a London print variety and a Brussels print variety. Those are very easy to tell apart. The London print is a pale violet, and the Brussels print is a regular old violet. 1 stamp here, I'm happy with this start. Like I've said in the past, having stamps missing from my page just means there's more for me to collect, so I'm happy about that. Moving on, we go to a new style of printing. This is a coat of arms style. Belgium has a lot of stamps that are coat of arms style. There are 2 styles of these stamps. One is perforated and one is imperf. What you see in this this row here is I have an imperf stamp. Now this is a valuable stamp in the imperf variety, but when I look really closely at this stamp, I can see that it has been trimmed, and so I've added it to this book. It's a little hard to see, but I can see the perf trims in it. This is a fake version of that imperf version of the stamp, and so I've got it here as an interesting oddity on this page, but as it stands right now, this is fake, this is real, and that's what I have for these 1866 coat of arms stamps. Moving on to the next page, we start to come into a new design style. There are a number of different frames around King Leopold. These are King Leopold II. Remember, we had King Leopold I in the first set of stamps. This is King Leopold I, and this is King Leopold II, and these are the first designs for the king. These first designs have numeric values at the beginning of the series, and then pictures of the king in different frames and different colors in the second set of the series. These are a lot of interesting varieties. We've got a first setup here, which is the main first issue, and then some higher values got added in a second set. Those are on this third strip, so I took 2 rows for the first series, a third row with the higher values. They're a little bit mixed in this one here. Then we've got a set of stamps that have aniline colors. Aniline colors essentially mean that they're somewhat reactant under UV light in this case. They're a little hard to tell because some of these aniline inks, they actually wash away when they get soaked off paper, and so it's a little hard to tell, but I believe I've got the aniline copies here. And then finally in 1884, some new colors were introduced in this last strip, and I've got those here. Now, these new colors were introduced with a later series of stamps, and I'll talk about where these fit in later, but you'll notice that I've got the 1 cent green, the 1 cent gray, that's an aniline green-ish color, and then the 1 cent olive green. These are all the same design. It's also a 4th gray here, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the same exact design, but in slightly different colors. And I wanted to put them all on this page so it was easy to see those variations all in one place. That makes it easier as I'm collecting to make sure I have looked at all the stamps in their correct comparison space, not necessarily in their correct chronological order. I find that easier for me. Let's see, is there anything? Oh, yeah, there's one other thing I want to mention, and it's this stamp right here. Let's pop a version of it up on the screen. You'll notice these two bands that run across it. These bands are a pre-cancel style that Belgium used on some of their stamps, and so you'll see these in the album. I believe Belgium is a country where eventually I'll want to collect pre-cancel versions of these stamps, because I think Belgium does an interesting job on the way they treat pre-cancels. But for this album's sake, at this point, I'm preferring the regular cancel version of these stamps over the pre-cancels. So I just have this one in here, although I do have other versions of these stamps pre-canceled. Okay, moving on, we have the second set of designs of King Leopold. Now, these designs are different in both the bust. The head shape of these is slightly different. At first, when I was putting these together, I talked about the beard size. It looks like in this stamp he's got a larger, pointier beard. That makes it easy to see these differences, but because each of these designs has a slightly different frame, it's really easy to get confused about whether the stamp belongs in the other page, the earlier design, or in this new set of designs. We have color variations in these three rows: first row of colors, second row of colors, and third row of colors. This is the series where that final color variations of the numeric designs came in. They would have come in, I think this first, well, let's see. I've got the date range here, so let's not guess. The color variations came in 1884. So that's the middle set. So the color variations of those numeric designs would have come out with this set. There's a couple other things going on in here besides the color variations up and down. We've got color variations in this stamp number 52. There are 3 different variations. And in this case, they have color variations not just on the color of the stamp, but on the color of the paper. This middle one is a bluish paper. I think this third one is a yellowish paper, so that's what's going on there. And then finally here on this stamp, this olive green, that also has a color variation that I don't have yet. So that would fit in there on that page. So let's move to the next series. The next series introduces one of the most frustrating elements of Belgian stamp collecting to me, and it's these weird tabs on the bottom. So the stamp, it comes in 2 parts. It comes in this top part, which you're used to seeing, and you can see on my page, some of these stamps don't have the tab. That one right there, that one right there. These 2, they don't have the tabs on them. They do come with the tabs. All the stamps were issued with the tabs, and so if you went to the post office and you bought these stamps that don't have the tabs, you would have bought them with the tab in place. That tab has no value. I don't want to say it's not useful. It doesn't have a postal value. It doesn't increase the cost of the stamp. But this tab essentially says, please don't deliver on Sundays. So what someone would do is they would put this whole thing on the envelope to say, mail this letter, but don't deliver it on Sunday, or they'd rip off the tab if they wanted to allow the post office to deliver this stamp on Sunday. So that's what the tabs are about. These tabs are perforated pretty finely right here, and you'll often see in collections these tabs hanging off by themselves. That essentially happens because these things are so fragile that a slight bend on them, the tabs just rip apart. I've even seen some stamps come in collections where someone's put a hinge between these two to kind of essentially reunite a tab with the stamp. There are some cases where these tabs have the identifying material on it, and there are two different kind of styles of these stamps. And you see I've got this section on the top and these 2 pages on the bottom. The only difference between this first section and this second section is that right between the tabs, I'll put a picture of this up on the screen. Right between the tabs here is an ornamental element, and on this stamp right here, there is no ornamental element between the stamp and the tab. So later designs came without that ornamental area, and the earlier design stamps had the ornamental area. In some cases where the perforation is misaligned, it's really hard to see whether the stamp has the ornament or not. And so usually you try and collect these stamps with the tab in place so that you can see that ornamental area. The other thing going on here is there are some watermark variants on this page. In here, I think this 61A is a watermark variant, one I don't have or even am going to work too hard to find. Some of the later ones, 68, 69, I think those are down here, are some color variations. This one is ultramarine and this one is light blue. These are color variations. Same here on 69 and 69A. Minor color variations are there. The other thing I want to point out is this stamp right here, number 82. 82A, which I don't have, has a variation that you can only see on the tab. So right here after this word diamant, I'm not exactly sure what that word means. After that is I think it probably means Sunday, looking at the rest of the context. This Belgian stamps usually come in two languages, French and Flemish, I think, but it could be French and German. All three languages get spoken in Belgium, and French, German, and Flemish. But only two of them are on the stamp. I'm not exactly sure which two. You'll also see here on these stamps Belgique and Belgie. I believe those are French and German, as I think is the case here too, but I'm really not certain about that. Anyway, on the word diamant, which I think is Sunday, has a period after it. That period is missing in 82A, and I've got a spot for that right here. Of course, you would never see that variation if you didn't have the tab in that case. So collecting the tabs is necessary, but I just find them ridiculously hard to keep these tabs properly protected. So these in a glassine envelope, it's just a pain in the neck. My least favorite part about Belgian stamp collecting are these tabs. Okay, let's move on from here. This page has tabs as well, and I've put these into my album because they have the tabs, and they look, in particular, this set right here looks so similar to the equivalent stamps on the previous page. So let's pop that up. This is the 10-cent, and over on this page, I think, well, I'll try and find one that gives a good picture of what's going, a good picture of what's going on here. But this design and these designs are actually commemorative stamps. These stamps are from the Antwerp exhibition, and these are from the Brussels exhibition. I believe these are stamp exhibitions. These stamps are commemorative stamps. Although when you see them like this, that size, format, and the tab, you have a very easy time getting confused. Like I said, I'll pop up this stamp design with another stamp design, and you'll see that the design in the center is very different. But it's hard to tell that without being careful in looking at it. So I've got this stamp design on this page and these larger stamp with the tabs here. Largely not because I really want to collect the commemorative stamps, but largely because these get so confused with these other stamps and they look like they belong together. I wanted to be able to tell the story for, at least for myself, as I looked at these stamps in my album. So these are commemorative stamps in my regular issue album. Turning the page, we have a new set of stamps. By the way, I want to point out that on this one, we have King Leopold II design. Then we have commemorative stamps. And on this page, we switch to King Albert I stamps. King Albert I, the first issues of King Albert stamps, came out with the tabs. These early ones, these numeric design, there's one numeric design stamp and two Lion of Belgium designs. This lion is a symbol of Belgium, and so it shows up in these early designs. Then there's later designs that feature King Albert I. So these are his first designs in Belgian stamp collecting. Now, you'll notice I have a big blank space here. This big blank space is for another set of King Albert I designs. And in my table, you'll notice I've got the 1912 set, which has a whole bunch of designs, including a 10-cent red. These are not the 1912. And then a later issue, 1912 to 1913, come out, and there's only a few of the earlier ones. I've got 3 of those here. These ones are different than the ones here. Let me pop them up on the screen. Look at these 2 stamps. Scott just shows you the picture of the 2 stamps, and I racked my brain trying to figure out what the difference was. And so I finally figured it out, and I'll explain it to you. It's very easy. On the earlier designs, up in the top corner of the stamp is a little square, a little corner box. I think you can see that now that I've mentioned it. And on the later designs, that corner box is missing. If I hadn't figured that out, I don't know how you would know, because otherwise the stamps look identical. I just have the later design stamps. Now, you'll also notice that I have 2 versions of this stamp, and here's another place where sometimes you need the tab to be able to tell the difference. The difference isn't actually on the tab. Let me pop these 2 stamps up as well. On these 2 stamps, on the first one, the normal version, the designer's name is engraved at the very bottom of the stamp. And in the second design, it's missing from the bottom of the stamp. So we've got 2 dimensions on these King Albert stamps. One is the version with the boxes. The second is the version without the boxes. And the version without the boxes comes both with and without the engraver's name on the bottom of the stamp. None of these stamps are particularly expensive. I don't have any expectation that I won't eventually get all these stamps, but you should at least know how to tell these apart. Okay, I think we can move on from here. Next is the German occupation. Now, Belgium was really brutalized during World War I, and Germany took over a large portion of it for a long time. So there are no stamps from Belgium proper or issued by the country of Belgium in that period of World War I. Instead, what we have here are German stamps, and these are our familiar Germania stamps. We've seen these before, and they're overprinted with Belgian at the top, and on the bottom, new values in the Belgian currency. We've got 2 sets of these. You can see that in my table down here. We've got 2 sets of these. One has the word centimes spelled out, and the other set, the larger set, has the word centimes abbreviated, 3 cent period. So that's these here. Now, I have these stamps also in my World War I collection, and I have a more complete set in my World War I collection. This is one of the oddities of collecting multiple styles. If I have a World War I collection and a Belgium collection, then I have to raise the question about where do I keep my preferred set. So far, I'm keeping the more complete set in my World War I album, and I'll get duplicate copies for this Belgian album. That's pretty easy to do with these because they aren't terribly expensive, fairly common stamps. But with more expensive stamps, you may need to make a different call. Anyway, I've chosen to put them in 2 places and put the primary version in my World War I collection. Now, these are the Germania style stamps. There are 5 stamps, 1 with centimes and I'm sorry, 2 with centimes and 3 with just a cent period, which are wide format Kaiser yacht stamps. I don't have any of those either here or in my World War I collection for Belgium. So when they come, they'll fill in some of the space here. There's work to be done here, but I really, there's a special place in my heart for the stamps of Germany with Germania on them and these overprints. And they're just lots of different varieties of these out in the market. Germany was a prolific colonizer, and certainly during World War I, they did a lot of capturing of areas and issuing stamps in those areas similar to these. So these have a special place in my heart, although I realize that stamps like these have a very negative connotation for Belgium because these are occupation stamps, not a good time for Belgium. obviously. So anyway, let's move on here. These now are new Albert I stamps. These came out, actually I said there were no stamps during World War One. That's not entirely true. These were in the occupied zones. These were in the unoccupied portions of Belgium. And these featured a new design of King Albert I. These are pretty easy to tell from the earlier design. Actually, these look older than the previous design, but here you are. I've got the whole set of these. This is a nice little run of stamps and colors. These stamps also came, or this series came, with a set of pictorial issues. This is the first time in Belgian stamp history that we had a combination of the king and items in the pictorial series. I just have one of those so far. These actually can slip past someone who's trying to collect definitive issues because they look kind of like commemorative stamps. In this case, they are not commemorative stamps, so they belong on this page, and I'll be gathering more of these as I can, but these higher value stamps are often harder to find in the kind of style of collecting that I do, where I'm looking for lots and going through them. So anyway, just the one there. Let's move on from here. This is 1919 stamp. This series is actually rather long, and this stamp features King Albert, and he's dressed in what's called a trench helmet. So this is a uniform, war uniform for King Albert. That was kind of part of the history of Belgium, where they're trying to make a point of highlighting that King Albert was, in fact, a participant in the war. These stamps actually came in 3 different sizes. There was a small size. I just have one of those. There was a medium size and a large size. I find this stamp really kind of fascinating because to me, in all these stamps, the king's face is washed out. It almost looks to me like a ghost image. There's no meaning to that. It's just these always strike me as the ghost image of the king. So we're going to move on from here. The next series also features King Albert. This is after World War I. We've got a whole rack of values for this. Again, a lot of nice colors in these stamps. Not a lot of very odd things going on in this set, except for one thing I do want to point out. There were a number of surcharges of these issues, and I've got those here at the bottom. Lots of different values. You've got a 10, a 35, and a 1 franc 75. There's a 3 cent, a 5, and a couple of 5 cents also in this series. Anyway, nice set, lots of nice colors. Now we have a different style of stamp for King Albert. These are what I'm calling the left bow stamps, just for lack of something better to call them here. Again, there's 2 sizes for these stamps. There's a set of small ones, and I only have small ones in this series, and a set of larger ones, which I've left space for here. There's also 2 items that I've listed here for the philatelic exhibit. There are 2 souvenir sheets, 1921 and 1924, that have this stamp on them. I don't have either of those souvenir sheets, and they would be considered commemoratives, but I will collect them on this page. And in this case, this one is 170 from 1921, is a regular souvenir sheet, but Scott has given the single from this stamp, 171A, a number, and 171 its own number for the full souvenir sheet. Anyway, nice set here. Turning the page, we have a new style of stamp. I think you've probably seen these Belgian lion stamps. These designs have a circle with the Belgian lion in them, lots of different values, and then there's also a series of surcharged values for these as well. I've got these all laid out here. Good start on these stamps. I kind of like these stamps. Earlier I showed you the pre-cancel varieties. This is what I mean by that. Here's another style of Belgian pre-cancel. They usually put the location and the date of the pre-cancel in a box, so they look distinctive in this set. So I, again, prefer to collect the regularly canceled or the mint copies, not the pre-canceled copies. I may expand this collection at some point to include pre-cancel examples of these. I just don't know yet. Okay. Next was a new set of King Albert stamps. And we've got two sizes here. We've got the small size and the large size. That stamp is unfortunately in really poor condition, but I've got a couple of fairly decent stamps here. These larger size stamps came out with different frames. This one matches the frame of the small size, and then the rest I think are in this square frame. But I do want to point out one more stamp, and it's a commemorative stamp on this page, and it's this one right here. You'll notice that this stamp has a black border, and this stamp was released in 1934 to commemorate, is that the right word? Honor, memorialize the passing of King Albert I. And so they took the same stamps that had been there, reissued it in black with a black border in memory of King Albert I. So that's what's going on with that stamp. It seemed appropriate to put that on this page, even though this is a commemorative stamp, because you would get that and naturally think that that's a definitive issue. Okay, turning the page, we now have a new style of regular issues for Belgium. We have two different designs going on with this set. There's only 6 different stamps here, and I've got 5 of them. We've got this stamp, which is Mercury, and this style of design, which is called a Gleaner. And so these are the two designs on this, just 6 stamps in 1932. Moving on, we move to a new coat of arms style with the Belgian lion in it. These came in a number of different styles, but first let's just look at this first set, 1935 to 1948. All these different colors. I love all the different colors and denominations in these stamps. Remember that you're going to compare these stamps mentally to these stamps, and if you're not, you're not really thinking too hard about it, you just think about them as the lion stamps. Realize that there's this style of lion stamp, and then this coat of arms style of lion stamp, and then later on we're going to see a third style. Let me see if I can show it to you. Yeah, this style here will come in later on. So Belgium has 3 different series, long-running series, that feature this lion in stamps that kind of look the same, but they're 3 different sets. The other thing that's happening with this is there are 3 other styles. There's surcharges in 1938. There's another set of surcharges in 1949. So I don't have any of those yet, but those are here. It turns out that 2 of these, number 265 and 361 and 361, I can't see which one that is. Anyway, it's one of these. They have a private surcharge, and that private surcharge is not official, but it's a real surcharge. The second thing that's going on here is that some of these stamps, and 4 different varieties of them, got overprinted at the end of World War II with a V for victory. And so these stamps were essentially commemorating the victory of Belgium in World War II, although I don't have any of those stamps to show you either. Okay, turning the page, we come to the new king. This is King Leopold III. These first stamps come with Leopold, just 3 of them, come with Leopold in a circle frame. I think these are nice. I've got 2 of these. There's a 1 Frank Rose Carmen version of this stamp that I don't have yet. Turning the page, these are also King Leopold III. These ones have square frames around the king, and they come in 2 different sizes, like you see here. A lot of different varieties. There's some color varieties here as well. There are some surcharged versions of this. I've got one right here. This is a 10-cent surcharge on top of, what is it, the 314 on top of the 70-cent brown. So that's that stamp with the surcharge. I have a note here that there were hundreds of different local surcharge styles for these stamps. The way the postal system did that is they sent out a note to all the different postal regions and said, we're increasing the stamp value, and they put on whatever method they had to back print their old stock with these new surcharges, and so that are in there. There's also, I have up here the original colors, and then I have a whole new set of colors on these stamps. Now, on these new stamps, there's another design element that's changed, and it's right here. There's a V on this stamp with a crown. That V, not for King Leopold III, but V for victory at the end of World War II. So these stamps first issued without a crown, and then the crown with the V on it for victory in World War II. Here's another copy of that surcharge. This is a 10% surcharge on top of the 5 franc stamp. So it's very hard to see, but there is a 10% surcharge here in maroon. This one I'm suspecting is one of these local overprints because the color is different, but I'm not sure until I get more copies of it. Okay, turning the page, we have a third style of stamp for King Leopold III. These stamps have him facing the other direction and have no frames at all. So I have a section for the circular frames, a section for the square frames, and then a section for the stamps with no frames. These stamps come in a whole set here, and what have I got going on here? So what I've got here is different paper types. I've got lots of different denominations, more different paper types, but then there's a second thing going on here, and that is on this stamp there is no crown, but on this one up in the top there's a crown with a B. That B is I think the symbol for King Leopold III, but I'm not certain about that. Anyway, these versions have crown with B. Those are regular issue stamps.
Okay, I have to break in here for a minute. I'm sitting editing this video and I realize what I'm saying makes no sense at all. Something's wrong. I did a little more research. The stamps with the B on them are actually the new king, King Baudouin. I think I'm saying that right. It's hard to know exactly. King Baudouin, I think it is. He's the son of King Leopold. The B is for his monogram. Boy, they are father and son, and they look identical in these two stamps. You can see a lot of differences here in these, but clearly I have this wrong. So where I'm talking about the old Leopold stamps that don't have the B on them, those are the older stamps. There's a newer set that was issued, I'm assuming in honor of trying to make the stamps look like continuity in honor of his father. We'll see more King Baudouin stamps a little bit later, but I have made a mistake as I'm talking here. If I talk about these stamps as being associated with Leopold, they're not. They're the stamps of his son, King Baudouin, who took over in this same period here.
So what do we have here? We have regular stamps, paper varieties, color shade varieties. We've got some surcharges that I'm missing here. The crown with the B version, and then there's one other stamp I've got listed here in 1983. So these stamps finished being released in 1958. But in 1983, a version of this stamp, the 1 franc, came out with a black border in black, also to memorialize the passing of King Leopold III. Now we have another set of stamps issued with in 1944 with a lion with a V over it. Again, that V is for victory, end of World War II. These stamps, you'll notice I have 2 versions of these stamps. And you'll also remember that I talked about how Belgium has multiple languages that are spoken. In this case, this whole series was released twice. Once with Belgique at the front and Belgie at the end, and a second time with Belgie at the front and Belgique at the end. That way the stamps were released and nobody got particular preference about what their preferred language was that went first. So both versions are here on this stamp. I just have this 5 cent in both versions, but every one of these stamps has those 2 versions. So there's more to collect here, but very interesting thing to release something twice so that you accommodate the language preference of your customer. Now we move to another regular issue set, one that I think is kind of interesting because this is a set that honors national industries and not a king. So these are the national industries of Belgium. We've got chemical industry, we've got industrial arts, we've got agriculture. What is this one? 381. That is communication center, and then 6 franc is iron manufacturer. There's a couple more in here, but these are the basic shapes and styles. These are regular issues, not commemorative stamps. Fascinating sometimes to try and figure out which ones are regular issues and which ones are commemoratives, but these are regular issue stamps. Now we get to that third series with the lion style. So this one is easy to tell from the others, but there are actually a couple of different designs going on here and a lot going on in this series. So first, 1951 to 1960, those stamps are all here at the bottom, the ones that I have. You'll see another copy of one of those pre-cancels here. That's that version. Again, I prefer the non-pre-cancel version, but that's here. There are different things going on here. Certainly, some of these stamps come in perf differences. Some of the varieties here are perf differences. There's a surcharge version of these stamps. There is also some booklet pane version of these stamps. And then finally, you see up here, I've tucked this one up here, really because I needed to fit 3 larger size stamps on this page. This one here is 431, that's right here. And there's 2 others in 1961 that are this larger size. I didn't want to make a third page. I'd already had to make a whole second page for these stamps. And what you see here is on this page, I've decided to put the large format and the first designs. On this page, I've got room for the surcharges, although I don't have any of those. And then in the 1961 to 75 series, 61 to 75, these are slightly different than the other ones, but pretty easy to tell apart. They come in different denominations usually, so it's not too confusing. Some more surcharges, and then finally there's a totally new design for this, although it's a little bit hard to tell. That starts right here, so these two are similar design, and then there's this new design which looks so similar it's surprising that they're different, but they are different. In this version, the Belgique is a circle, an arc on the bottom, and on this one there's a banner that has those words inside of it. The other difference here is that the numbers on these stamps have a white outline, and there's no white outline on these earlier designs. There are a number of other little differences in the lion and the shape, but mostly you want to tell these by looking at the outline around the numbers and the words, the Belgique at the bottom being either an arc or a banner. So that's what's going on here. And that's all this material here. So I think we're done with this. Yeah. So now let's move on to the next king. I think we pronounce his name as King Baudouin, something like that, King Baudouin. This is a pretty familiar series to most people. These came out in a lot of different colors and shades, of course, but also, so I've got all these normal stamps in this first 2 rows. That's these here. There are coil versions of a number of these stamps. But in these particular stamps, the coil versions have perforations on all 4 sides, so it's hard to tell them apart, the coil versions. The coil versions, every 5th stamp on the back of them has a control number, so sometimes you can get a version that has the control number. The other thing that's theoretically happening with the coil stamps is some of them have what's called luminescent paper. So I say luminescent paper, but when I look at these stamps with the luminescent paper under UV light, what you see looks like a wash of luminescent coating on top of the stamp, like someone washed across it. I've got those stamps all along this, in this item here. So this 3 cent is the same as that 3 cent, although they look very different. That has a luminescent coating. This one and this one are matched, but that one has the luminescent coating. This is a 5-cent matching and the 6-cent matching. But these stamps all have that luminescent coating. Now, Scott lists some of these as having coil variants. So, for example, this 3-cent 455 has a coil version. So it's possible that that's a coil version. It also says that all these stamps, not all of these, but many of these come in luminescent paper versions, but not coil versions. And so these two theoretically don't even come as a coil, but yet indeed there's a luminescent version and a non-luminescent version up here and up here for those two stamps. Finally, there is a third style, this booklet style, 474. So this one is the same 3-cent as that one, which is the same here. But the booklet style stamps have straight edges on them, so those are pretty easy to tell. So those are pretty straightforward. There is one more strip that I have space for here that I've listed in my table as redrawn versions of these stamps. There are 3 of them, a 250, a 450, and a 7-franc stamp. These are the same design as this, but in those redrawn stamps, which I don't have copies of to show you, unfortunately, the background around the king's head is white instead of this shaded version. And I don't know if it's white all the way to the edges or just a white halo around his head. We'll have to get a copy of that and see that. Anyway, these are our first stamps of this new king. We turn to the next page and we come to a series of tourist attraction stamps. I've decided to call these stamps definitive issues, and I've done that because they come in the full range of values. Although it would be reasonable to think that these maybe are commemorative stamps. It's hard to be sure. Later on in Belgian postal history, there are a number of tourist attraction stamps which don't come in all these values and which I haven't decided to call regular issue stamps. I've called those commemorative stamps and not collected them. But so far, in my mind, these feel much more like a regular issue stamp, and I've decided to collect them that way. Nice stamps in this set. This is a new series for King Baudouin. I hope I'm saying that close to right. New series. These are very distinctive from anything we've seen before. These are pretty straightforward. Most of these stamps, and all of them that I have here, are the regular stamps, 1971 to 80 here. There are coil versions of these stamps and booklet versions of these stamps, again, that I don't have any of, but those are pretty straightforward to tell. One more thing, there's a 350 orange-brown version of this that is a 40th birthday stamp honoring King Baudouin, which I will put on this page, even though a 40th birthday stamp is clearly a commemorative stamp. Anyway, nice series here. Moving on, we have a little older and more modern design, again, King Baudouin. I just have the very beginning of a collection. What I find and what you'll see through the rest of this album is as we get into the 70s and 80s, the number of stamps that have made it into the hands of collectors, and certainly the number of stamps, modern stamps, that have made it into collectors that then go on the market for me to add to my collection. Those modern stamps just aren't being moved around anymore. So I get very few of these stamps in my collection. But I have a few of them here. Nice new design for the king. These come in 3 different styles. There's a narrow version like this. I do like most of my stamps in the US are just slightly smaller than this for regular issue stamps. They take a 25 millimeter mount. Many, I would say most of the modern Belgian stamps take a 28 millimeter mount. So they're just a little bit bigger. I kind of like that look here for stamps. Anyway, these come in this narrow version of the king. And then there's a wider version of these stamps with the same design that he's wearing glasses, and then another set of wider stamps where he's not wearing glasses. And so I just have the narrow ones so far. Okay. Moving on, we come to a new style for Belgium. I just have 2 stamps for this, but you'll see these bird stamps, lots of bird stamps from Belgium. whole range of these, and there's no doubt, given the number of stamps that are in this series, that these are definitive issue stamps, because there's so many different varieties here and they were issued over so much time. I do want to point out one thing about this stamp. On these two versions I have here, there's a 1 franc and a 3 franc version. These first two series, 85 to 91, 92 to 96, and 96 to 98, all these stamps are denominated in francs. In 2000, Belgium moved to the euro, and the stamps starting in 2000 were labeled in both francs and euros. And I don't have any of those to show you, but all the ones in this fourth column are francs and euros. Now, as I get more of these stamps, I am almost certain I'm going to have to make a second page to hold them, and that's completely fine. I'll fill this page up and then add another strip to hold the rest of these. But I think these are just beautiful stamps, and interesting that they are denominated in francs and then later in euros. I think when we get later on, we're going to find stamps in this bird series which are just euro denominated. I think I have a page for that coming up. We'll get there. Next, we have a final series for King Baudouin. This is 1990 to 1992. There are 4 different varieties of this, including a 1993 commemorative memorial stamp for his passing, which is a 15 franc, similar to this stamp, in black and gray. So I kind of like that tradition of memorializing your king, although in the US, we have a rule that we don't put any leaders on any living people onto stamps. And one of the things that I note is that all these Belgium stamps are of kings on stamps. US explicitly moved away from having kings in our revolution, and so that's kind of one of the things that distinguishes us on these stamps, is we don't put our leaders on stamps because we don't treat them like kings in our postage stamps. That's interesting. But if we were, and I do like this notion, being able to memorialize important leaders in stamps is a decent thing to do, I think. Anyway, moving on here. Now we move to the new king, King Albert II. These are what I've called photorealistic stamps. These stamps came essentially in this format for all of these different denominations. You'll notice on this stamp is an A with a crown, and the A actually has a little Roman number 2 under there. The A, Albert II, A with the little Roman number 2, his symbol on this stamp. So all these different denominations. There is one 50 franc green stamp, and then later in 2001, there's a version of this stamp that comes in both francs and euros. Okay. Now we move on, and we're getting to a new style of series. These are the flower issues. The flower issues came out. These are definitely regular issue stamps, but there's something else going on with these. These are not denominated the way we usually think of stamps being denominated. These stamps are actually denominated with a no value indicated style, kind of what the US would call forever stamps. So these stamps have no numbers on them. I don't know how that makes them used internationally, but that's how these came out. These are no value indicated in francs for the first set, booklet stamps in francs. 1773 is part of this series. There's coil versions of these stamps and sheet versions of some of these stamps, but this first set denominated in francs. The second set, I have one example of this, 1937. This stamp is no value indicated, but it's denominated in euros, even though there's no denomination on it. That cost 49 cents, and this one costs 17 francs. So interesting difference. The other thing I want to point out on this stamp is this red strip. These red strips are, this one says prior, which I assume means priority mail. Many of the stamps of this period have these red strips, and then what we have moving forward, starting in 2005 to 2009, is a series of these flower stamps with euro service values. So there's a 1 stamp and an A stamp and a 2 stamp, which are the 1 rate, the A rate, and the 2 rate. I don't exactly know what those are, and as I get more of these, I'll probably try and figure that out. But those different rates are like first class, second class, and international. But I don't really know which ones are which. These flowers are also clearly regular issues. Now I'm going to pop up a picture of one of these Belgian post emblems. These came out, again, in different styles. There's a no value indicated franc value, no value indicated euro values. There's some regular euro values and some euro service rate stamps. These came out across a long period, the first in 2001, all the way up to 2015 for these stamps. I wish I actually had some of these. These are a nice design in my opinion. Most people, I think, would think they're kind of ugly, but I like them. I don't have any yet, but these came out with the same style as those flower stamps. Now we move on, and we have another King Albert II style. I don't have any of these. We'll get these as we come along, and then finally, do I have the birds? Yeah, I'm not lying about the birds. Finally, we have another King Albert II design. You notice these big bands here, the A with the crown and the 2 under it device that we've seen before. Priority stamps in different colors. These are, in theory, denominated, which they are right there in euros, 0.07, 0.19. Those are cents. Sorry, 0.19. Is that on my list? 82. Yeah, here we go. Oh, 49. I'm just reading that wrong because the cancel goes on it funny. So 0.17, 0.49. These are denominated, but also have the red prior on them. Nice design, kind of simple for that. Now we move on to, I think, one of my second to last page. This is, like I promised before, the euro value for the bird stamps. Now, inside of this whole time period, I've decided that I'm calling the bird stamps and the flower stamps regular issue stamps. But there are also a number of series which kind of have the feel and shape of regular issues. There's some pets, there's various animals, but they came out in such short runs with so few values that, to me, even though they may be definitive issues that just had a very short run, they feel more like commemorative stamps to me. So I've decided to save the bird stamps, but not the pet stamps or the dog stamps or the art stamps or the other versions of tourist stamps, because there's just not enough uniformity of them that makes them have that feel of something common that I like in my collection. Okay, finally we have a series of King Philippe. Philippe came after King Albert II. I don't know of a memorial stamp for Albert II, but King Philippe's stamp starts in 2013. I don't have any examples of this. I'm sure there are more King Philippe stamps. My catalog just doesn't go higher than 2015. So this is where my album stops. I could, at the museum, get the more up-to-date catalog. I have access to it, so I could update these pages. But given that I don't have any stamps past this time period, it's something I'll wait until I get more stamps to bother with. And that's the end of my album. That's the last page, is just the information I put on every album about what kind of paper I used, and that's the end of it. I hope you all enjoyed my walkthrough of my new Belgian stamp album. I had a lot of fun putting it together. I learned a lot in the process, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. Okay, now I need to pick the next album that I'm going to work on. So if you have any suggestions for me, drop them into the comments and we'll see what comes next. I don't really know what I'm going to work on next in my collection. Anyway, in the meantime, I'll have fun collecting and you have happy collecting too.